I think the biggest mind shift through the program was looking at it from the lens of sort of almost like you would with corporate America. Like I said, I've been investing for real estate for a while, and I never was big on DIY. Like, for example, I learned very quickly that if I had to pick up a hammer and do stuff, I wouldn't be doing this business very long. But I think the biggest mind shift is on the scaling side, looking at it as if you were in corporate America.
Hey, this is Neeti, and what you're about to hear today is a very special episode with one of the members from our portfolio program.
We call these Sensei Sessions. These interviews are designed to give you a perspective about what you can achieve with the right strategies and execution.
I hope you enjoy this episode, and for free resources, check out our show notes section to see how you can build and scale your portfolio.
This is Tasha Snipes. And so Tasha, let's just get started and hear your story, where you are, what you do outside of real estate, and how did you get into real estate in the first place?
Sure. So I am based out of Houston, Texas, originally from St. Louis, but came down here for school and work and hung around. I have two children, married. I have an 8-year-old and a 1-year-old. I started the program when my youngest was about 5 months. And so I felt like she grew up in the program with me, so there have been several calls where she's attended and been on my lap and things of that nature. My day job and night job is I'm a partner at a large law firm. I do patent litigation, so something that has absolutely nothing to do with real estate. I've been interested in real estate for as long as I can remember, or probably since law school. I've always been interested in investing. And when I was in law school, I was doing an internship. And as a lawyer, we have to be very careful on insider trader laws because we get access to confidential information, and various firms put in various protections to protect against that risk. Well, when I was starting out in, law school and I wanted to invest, and, I got my first, chunk of money that I wanted to do something with, I realized that the firm that I was interning at, you had to get permission to buy and sell stocks. I was like, okay, yeah, that's not going to happen. I need to find another asset class because I'm not going to let, a job tell me what investment I can and cannot do. And so that's when I said, okay, what other asset classes can we do? And that's when I started reading books about real estate.
Beautiful. So we're going to get into the actual property purchasing that you've gone through after going through the program. But I mean, a mom of a baby and an 8-year-old and a busy lawyer. Like, how do you manage your time? Like, can you give us some tips and tricks first? And then we're going to get into more of the deals and things like that you have.
Sure. So couple of mind shift things. For me, I hate the phrase, I don't have time. Hate is too strong of a time. But I try to stop myself when I think about that and rephrase it of, is it a priority or not? When I rephrase something from I don't have time to it's not a priority or it is a priority, then the mind starts to kind of shift, at least for me, to finding time. If it is a priority, how much time am I, and you don't feel like you have time, how much time am I on social media? How much time am I watching mindless TV? Am I waking up? Things that I challenge myself when I find myself making that quip of I don't have time. And I'm talking about something that is a priority to myself. I start to evaluate where I'm spending my time. When I feel that I need to really focus and dive into something, I tend to wake up early around 5 a.m. I don't do this often. I would love to sit here and tell you that I wake up every day at 5 a.m. and I'm super disciplined. I'm not. I am disciplined when the need arises. And so if I have a lot going on, I tend to wake up early and get a lot done between the hours of 5 a.m. and 7 a.m. So that is one thing. And then the mind shift of prioritization and really challenging myself on the lack of time thing.
And the growing your real estate portfolio, How important is that to you, that you have been able to prioritize this over and above maybe sleep and Netflix and things like that?
It definitely is a high priority. I do prioritize it over, I don't watch much TV, for example. That's one of the ways that I fit things in. I literally, I have, times where I watch zero TV. That just works for me. I also have times where, I'm kind of on a lull period and I watch tons of Netflix and things of that nature. But it is a high priority to me. And so, there are times where I prioritize it over other things. I try not to prioritize over sleep, but sometimes that happens as well. But, it's fitting it in and just not allowing myself to make excuses, I guess you could say.
Let's talk about your deals. How many properties you have, and in particular, the properties that you have purchased or acquired since being part of the portfolio program.
Sure. So the properties that I have acquired since being a part of the program is 2. And it actually took me a lot longer to get those 2, or even just number 1, than anticipated. It took me 6 months to get a deal accepted. And then the second deal, I think, was under contract within a month or 5 weeks, something like that. And so it definitely got the ball snow rolling. I've been investing in real estate for a while. So my portfolio right now is actually 12, but the two properties that I purchased with during the program are BRRRRs. The other ones were more turnkey. And, I wanted to focus, and I am focusing on BRRRR and scaling. And that's what drew me into BRRRR type properties. And so, yeah, that's what my portfolio looks like now.
What you just said is something that Pollack talks about quite a bit. And you may have heard that if you've been on these calls, is that you get one deal, and it maybe takes a little bit more time than you think, than maybe you anticipate. And then you hear it all the time. They come fast and furious after that. So I think you were going to share with us one deal, or at least one deal's numbers, if you're able to and willing to. So you live in Texas. Where do you invest?
Sure. So the BRRRR properties are in Memphis, Tennessee.
Okay.
My husband's from there. We go there often. It's a popular neighborhood or area for out-of-state investors. The numbers work. And I care deeply about that community since, that's where my family is. And so that's where we invest.
I love that. I mean, because it makes sense number-wise, but also emotion-wise, it is something that you care about, seeing positive change happening. Okay. So what'd you buy? How much? What is it worth now?
Well, the first property that I purchased, it is by the university, or the big university there, University of Memphis. It is a 3-bedroom, 2-bath. I think I made 3 or 4 offers before this was accepted. It was under contract at least twice, maybe 3 times with other investors, and fell out of contract. Really? And so I just kept monitoring it and going back, kept monitoring it and going back. And, I had one of the things I expressed to my realtor is I can close. Like, this deal has fell out of escrow at least twice. I am serious about that. And to show that I'm so serious, I actually put up quite a bit of money in escrow. I put in $5,000 in earnest money to show that, hey, I can actually close.
Yeah. And wait, when was this? This was a couple of years ago?
No, this is June. This is June.
Oh, of this year. Oh, like 4 or 5 months ago. Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
So, how did you find this house? Why was this house so important to you, this particular home? And then how'd you find your realtor? Because we really love the idea of, I know Memphis is where you wanted to, but how did you find the particular location in Memphis? And then the house itself.
So I definitely spun my wheels on different areas in Memphis, and that's just trial and error. But I found this particular area, actually my mother-in-law called us one day and was like, you really should look at this zip code. There's some properties that a lot of investors buy in, so consider it. And true, like, you know, okay, mother-in-law fashion, I kind of was like, and then I actually looked, I was like, she actually might be onto something.
But you didn't tell her, right?
So that's how I found the neighborhood. It was on the MLS. It needed a lot of work. So I was pushing the Goldilocks principles on that. But I was absolutely comfortable with that. The challenge, to back up a little bit of why I was comfortable about that, one of the reasons why it took so long to find a deal was the ideal properties for BRRRR, the ones that needed the more cosmetic Goldilocks principles that are talked about, were going like that, and oftentimes going over asking. I mean, even today in the Memphis market, if you see a property that is priced well, that needs that, you know, more cosmetic light rehab, it's going to go quickly, and probably even over asking. And so, you know, the numbers didn't work for those, that all of my offers for that were getting rejected. And so there was less competition with some of the heavier rehabs. And so once I kind of wrapped my head around that, and felt comfortable with a contractor that can tackle that, that's what made me go, okay, well, you know, we can do this.
Mm-hmm. Okay. A lot of things I have questions about. So let's talk about the rehab, like, and then we're going to dig more into the rehab in just a little bit, but what is the difference in your mind from the cosmetic ones that you were being priced out of, and then this one that maybe needed a little more heavy lifting? Like, what was the difference for you? And how did you estimate that cost difference?
Sure. So in my head, the difference of like what I'm calling, at least for this conversation, is more of the cosmetic, is something that is, you know, replace, you know, you take it out and replace it. So, and it's probably something that is like a $30,000, $40,000 type rehab. So, you know, yes, it needs new kitchen, new bathroom, and floors and paint. But, you know, and that's, you know, if I see those deals today and I can get it, I'll take those down all day. There's just so few of them in my market right now, at least that are priced well. And so that's about between $20,000 to $40,000 rehab, depending on, you know, all needs to be done. The heavier rehabs, and what this property needed, is that it had a lot of mold and water damage. It had a new roof. The ceiling was missing from about a third of the house. There was a lot of rotten wood. And so it was a much bigger project. I projected the rehab budget for that one was about $60,000. How I got comfortable with that was my contractor. You know, he gave me a line item budget. And then also my lender gave me a spreadsheet, and I said, oh, what about that? Well, he didn't include that. What do I think that will cost? I'm going to add it to my lender budget, even though it's not in my budget for rehab, in case something comes up. And so and that took a lot of time, as far as, you know, trying to figure out, okay, the numbers, and talking to my contractor. What is this? What about this? Does this include it? Including a healthy contingency fee budget. And then also, when I was uncertain about a certain aspect of the renovation on the technical side, I have an engineering background. Although I'm a lawyer today, I'm an engineer. And so details and sort of how things work, and, you know, that's just something that my brain gravitates to. I just went to YouTube, how to replace, you know, rotten joists. And it wasn't that my contractor wasn't doing his job. It was just something that made me feel comfortable with, when he would send me a picture, what am I looking at?
Yeah, for sure. So first of all, Pollock's an engineer, and engineering folks unite, right? To have this, we're calling you, is what I'm going to do. I'm going to call you. But how did, like, first of all, you're out of state. You're out of state making this happen with a pretty hefty rehab. So how did you find the people to help you? Because you couldn't do it yourself. You know, you're a new mom with a big job. You need team. So how did you find the people to help you with this? And then I want to go through the rehab in a little bit.
Sure. So at first I was getting recommendations through realtors. And I went through a couple of people where people just stopped picking up the phone. They would talk a good game and seem interested and things of that nature. And you kind of screen them and talk to them just like it's taught in the program. And at first they were very interested, and then eventually they stopped picking up the phone. And so I joined local Facebook groups, and there was a comment somewhere on there about the contractor, and I checked out their Facebook program or page. I was like, okay, the pictures look pretty nice. And, I interviewed him. And one of the reasons why I picked him is he was hungry. He was on a younger guy, didn't have quite as much experience as some of the other contractors, but was really hungry to grow his business and really wanted to do that. And his references were great as well.
So it was just a comment in someone else's post, and you went down the trail and...
Yeah, I can't even remember if someone else commented or he commented. I honestly do not remember. But it was just a comment in a Facebook group and a local group that I took that lead and ran with it.
One of the things in a past Sensei session we did with Ann and Randy, who's another pro, and Randy Betts, is they told us when they would invest out of state that they would go visit. So did you do a lot of traveling to visit? And I know you got family there too, so maybe you were able to do a little bit more of that. But did you meet with the contractor right away, or how was that?
No, not right away. So I first started looking for deals in Memphis around Thanksgiving of last year. And so it took June, right, before I actually got under contract, the end of June, by the way. And so I started working with this particular contractor probably in February, March, I'm guessing.
Okay.
And so I didn't meet him then. I FaceTimed with them and talked to him on the phone and have him and things of that nature. And then when I was under contract, luckily so, we were going to Memphis anyway. And so I met him at the property after we closed. I think they had just started, it was like a week after we closed, and they had just started demo and things of that nature. So I walked the property with him happenstance because I was coming to Memphis anyway. And then just last week, we're finishing up that rehab any day now. We're just doing the punch list. And so I went to Memphis again, this time specifically to see that property and the other one that I have in the contract and check with it and walk the property as well.
Congratulations, by the way. That was my next question, is where are we in that? So how'd he do? How is he doing with the rehab?
Yeah. So I definitely have been happy with the rehab. I have to remind myself and adjust expectations that contractors are not necessarily how things work in the corporate side of America. Things get behind track, things of that nature. And I would say, in my experience, he's done better than most. For example, communication, he's pretty darn good with that. But the hiccups that we ran into weren't actually on the big stuff. This is a big rehab. I mean, we had to tear out lots of sheetrock, lots of rotten wood, lots and lots of work. And it wasn't that actually was our hiccup. Our hiccups were actually the small things like the countertops are back ordered, and the punch list. Why is it taking so long to go through the punch list? It's the small things of I've noticed that, and I think it was Pollock or Nitty actually said this as well in one of the calls. The contractors, they like doing the big stuff. They like tearing down walls and removing, rotten wood. They don't really like putting on doorstops and making sure that blinds are put or whatever, right?
Yeah, that makes sense.
And so that sort of last 10% has been painful. He also had an injury, so it's probably been more painful than usual because he actually was out of the field for 3 weeks.
Miraculously, all their problems happen during the last 10% of the project.
Yes.
Yes. It's just not their skill set. That's what it is.
Yeah. And so that's been definitely a challenge, but I do think that we are on track to wrap up this week. We're talking about door stops and,
Everything, like totally gone.
like, super, I'm hoping to have it listed this weekend.
Amazing. Congratulations. So is he also doing property number 2?
Yes. And that was
That says something.
bigger. And that was even bigger rehab.
Even that gave me chills. Okay. Let's hang on. Let's do numbers for the first one, if you're okay with that. And then do numbers for the second one. That gave me chills because, like, oh my goodness. But what is the first numbers, if you don't mind? So purchase price, rehab, ARV.
I purchased that one for $96,000. And this is a pretty big size property for Memphis. It's about 1,600 square feet, which for Memphis, that's a nice size.
Yeah.
It's a 3-2. Wow. My renovation budget was 60. We're probably going to be about actually 51, 52.
What? That's amazing.
So, I had quite a bit hefty contingency in there. And so some of that is luck, to be honest. Some of that is spending time to really try to understand the budget, ask questions and things of that nature.
Yeah. Hang on, but let me just go into that really quickly. So Ann and Randy say congratulations. But like when you dug in on the budget bucket, like what did you do that you think was different that helped you create this contingency? And Pollock has a question too.
I was going to answer a question, but go ahead.
The spreadsheet that my lender gave me, which I don't think is any different than the spreadsheets that any hard money lender gives you. I use Rain City for this particular project, these 2 projects. But their spreadsheet, again, I don't think it was anything special. But the part that actually made me sort of like spin my wheels, but I think was a really good, important step in managing the budget, was my contractor gave me a scope of work, right? And I added to that scope of work and things of that nature, and even challenged him on some stuff. Did you think about this? Or does this include this? Or are you sure you included enough for the demo and things of that nature? And then used that scope of work and filled out my budget through my lender. And the 2 had different categories. What I mean by that is the lender spreadsheets had something in there like rough plumbing. First of all, I was like, Google, what is rough plumbing, right? And then after that, I was like, oh, okay, they mean like plumbing that goes in walls. Okay, well, there's no rough plumbing line item on my contractor scope of work.
Oh, okay.
My scope of work might have like a bathroom reno, right? And so I would say of that, $5,000 for the bathroom reno, how much do I think is going to be plumbing? Actually, that's a poor example because I actually did have a plumbing budget. But yeah, I would take like the plumbing budget.
It's comprehensive. Yeah, yes. You made it way more comprehensive.
Yes.
Which is really smart.
Amazing.
Really smart. Okay, go ahead, Pollock, please.
Yeah, I wanted to just answer a question real quick. And before I lose it, it like went up in the feed again. Oh, I think Karen had a question. Would it be smart to just get a handyman to do the punch list, or is it better to just stick with the GC? So I'm going to say that this is something that comes up all the time. At the end of the project, majority of the GCs were very good at taking the project through almost all the way up to the finish line. They lose interest. They're not good at that. They are really good at like a crew of 8 people comes in, breaks everything down, starts putting everything together again. And then when it comes to those last things, like, hey, that outlet isn't working. It's just not their skill set, right? That's not what they're good at. And so number one, always leave I always tell my contractor, can we leave like $2,000 until we do the final punch list? But I found that it's so hard to get him in to do that work. He's like, I don't even care about the $2,000. Like, keep your $2,000. I don't want to show up to do those little things. Like that is the kind of mindset, right? Like I'm not good at that. So ideally we want the contractor to finish the job completely. So that would be my first step. And then if there are a few things that are remaining, your property manager can do a walkthrough. Maybe charge you $80, whatever, $100. do a walkthrough, then they can give you that punch list that you need. So that is definitely an option, and then have somebody else take care of it. There's nothing wrong with it as long as the numbers make sense and you're comfortable with it. One more thing that I wanted to mention here, join those Facebook groups. It's not about how you find the contractors. Join, go to Angie's List, join the Facebook group. All of those places are multiple places where you can find the contractor.
Okay, you did, Tasha, everything you've talked about has been so good. And so to answer Kristen's question about her getting budgets of $75K for basic rehabs, she's asking, where were you finding these cheap contractors? And you had mentioned that you joined all these local groups and were finding the ones who are hungry. So it's about that relationship, right? A little bit. You vetted him, you talked to him, you had that conversation with him. So any more insight you might be able to share for someone else who's looking for a contractor that isn't so wildly expensive?
Yeah. And I know that there was talks about this in the program, but make sure that you're seeking out an investor-friendly contractor. There's a big difference between an investor-friendly contractor versus a retail contractor, someone who would like fix your personal home. Very different skill sets, and very different expectations and business model. The investor one makes their money off of volume, right? Repeat work, things of that nature, typically. Versus the retail person, think about it. They're probably not going to do work for that homeowner, at least a big one, again, right? Versus the investor one wants that repeat. So, sometimes, do you work with investors? How many? Things of that nature. And that's kind of some of the first questions that I talked about. If they start saying stuff, it's not a deal breaker, but if they start saying, yeah, I've worked with a couple or a few, versus like, no, that's my business model. Those are kind of how you want to separate the two.
Yeah. And like get those questions out, ask those questions early so you have that answer. Okay. So what is the ARV of this first property?
I think the ARV is going to be about $185,000.
That's awesome. Okay. So when did you say, all right, Tasha, I'm ready for another one? How did that one come about? And how did you say, or, how did you make that decision to use contractor number one for this second property?
So he exceeded up until this last 10%.
Okay, now we know it's okay, kind of. Not okay. But
Yeah. It honestly,
okay.
Pollock and Neri warned that like it's just something that they struggle with. And next time I actually might hire a handyman to do the punch list, because it might save me more money on the time part of this. And then not to burn down, there was the extenuating circumstances that he was literally injured for 3 weeks and like stuck at home. So timing of that also kind of made it exaggerated. But the reason why I chose him to do property number two is that he, as far as I could tell, he was doing a good job of property number one. He was moving extremely quickly. He was communicating well and things of that nature. And generally speaking, I was happy with, the relationship and the direction it was going.
Yeah. And how'd you find that second property? And is it in the same neighborhood as the first one, or did you have a realtor helping you?
Away from each other.
Is it really? And did you have a realtor helping you to make that connection? And you said 2 minutes from the first one. Okay.
So I went through a couple of realtors as well. So at first I found a realtor just through like Googling or YouTube, like Memphis investors, and people popped up. Right. And my first realtor, she actually was good. But she went on maternity leave and never called me back. And so I said, okay. And then the next one, I found her by accident, actually. I called the listing agent and she picked up, and she was not the listing agent. She was like, this company has not changed their number, but I'm happy to help you. And I was like, sure. How quickly can you write an offer? And she worked with me for a while. And then she stopped answering. There was no love lost in that one either. Because keep in mind that I was making several offers that were not getting accepted. It took over 20 to get one accepted.
Oh, I'm glad you said that. I'm glad, because we have to set that expectation, right? That It's just,
It's a numbers game. It's a numbers game. And I know there was talk, at least at one point of the course, about the funnel and, where are you getting jammed up in the funnel? And that actually really focused my mindsets, because I actually increased the number of offers that I was making. At one point, I was making 2 to 6 offers a week. I mean, I was turning them out.
So wait, how many agents were you working with at that point? Was it the same agent, or like 2 or 3 that were helping you, or?
Sure. So
Sure.
after the first 2, I stopped working with them, no love lost. I now work with a agent that works only with out-of-state investors. He doesn't walk properties. He's, going to do, quite frankly, bare minimum work, things of that nature. If you ask him for his opinion on ARVs and stuff like that, he'll give it to you. But he's a high volume, realtor but the reason why I work with him is because he has essentially assistants or people on his team that churn out offers quick. And so, for example, I can email his team and say, here are the terms and conditions, write me off an offer. And there's a good chance that I can get a response and an offer to sign within like a half an hour. Definitely within 24 hours, but usually quick. So that's what I pay. That's the value that they add there, is that they just churn out volume. So I use him. And then I will use the listing agent. It is a struggle still to get listing agents to call you back. I don't know why. It's just, and I've even talked to Pollock about that. That's just a hurdle. Now, if I run into that, I call the agent that will actually turn out the offer and say, hey, can you write this offer for me?
Whoever can answer, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So the second property was MLS?
Wholesale deal down through, I think, the same Facebook group.
No way. And somebody was asking in the comments, what Facebook group?
I don't even know, but I just joined every single one that looked credible that said like something about Memphis and investing in real estate. So there's probably like 3 different local groups that I'm a part of. And I was looking for are they active? Because Facebook will even show you when's the last comment and how many members it has. And so if it was having activity, I was joining.
Okay. So your feed.
There's some guidelines in the modules too. But one new thing that I recently learned is, even though it's Facebook groups for parents, you'll see people often ask each other for contractor recommendations. And because, I know they're homeowner contractors, but if you're just building a list of people you can call and see if they're a good fit, that's one more option. Yeah, I love that, Tasha, that you went in and joined that.
I love that. Okay, so a couple more questions, and these are kind of fast. So Diane and Jim, great question. Who walks the property for you if your realtor isn't doing it?
So the contractor is. The contractor will walk it for me. And take pictures. And then the way that, because again, we're doing pretty high volume. I might have him walk 3 and make an offer on 1, right? And so he walks them for me. If it's something that I think I have a good shot of getting under contract, or I am under contract, I ask him to do a line out of budget, because it takes him a while. It takes him a couple of hours to give me a line out of budget. If it's something that I'm not under contract, or I just need an estimate for an offer, then I say, just give me your estimate, one line, your ballpark, line item. And that still takes him a while, because he takes his estimates pretty seriously. He doesn't just sort of guesstimate. And I use that from offer.
Okay. So purchase price and ARV, and where are you with property number 2?
Property number 2 should be done in the next month.
Wow, that's amazing. Okay, so what did you buy it for? And then ARV, and what is the budget for rehab on that one? I don't think you've shared that. I'm
sure.
Not sure.
It is about 1,100 square feet. I purchased it 54,500. This is where we're really getting outside of the Goldilocks principle. But again, at this point, I've had comfort with my investor or with my contractor, and things of that nature. It was a house that had, essentially, to be honest, it was a hoarder house, meaning it had junk and stuff through the windows. I did walk it. I could not get past like the first room because there was just so much trash in it. So essentially it was almost sight unseen.
So you couldn't access a lot of the areas.
Yeah.
Hoarder houses aren't bad. It's better than mold and walls missing.
So then what is the rehab for that one? The budget or what your budget
That
is?
rehab budget is $65,000.
Okay.
It's a smaller house. It's about, like I said, 1,100 square feet.
Yeah.
So that 65,000 goes up really far on that one. And I had a pretty hefty contingency in that because literally I couldn't see the floors. I couldn't see anything on that. And so, talk through with my contractor and also other investors to like, okay, what could my plumbing budget be if we start opening up stuff, and using that type of information for my budget.
Oh, and then you padded it just like you did with the first house. You padded your budget and then said to your contractor, okay, did you think about this and think about that?
Yes.
Okay. What do you think the ARV could be on a house like that, or will be?
This one, I think it's going to be about 155. It was a 2-bedroom one. We're converting one of the dining room into a 3. That's where we're getting about a $20,000 bump in ARV on that one.
So I've got some great questions. Rami asks, how do you determine the rehab budget for the 2 to 6 houses / offers a week? So is it based on guesstimates, or do you send your GC for each one? So you would
most of them, my GC is walking. There are some, like out of, let's say it's 4 offers. Out of those, my GC probably walked 2, and then the other 2, the numbers are so good that I can make it work on that if my offer gets accepted.
Okay. Gotcha. And so, okay, how big is your contractor's crew?
Forgot, but he probably has about 3 or 4 crews.
Okay. And then how much was your trash removal for the hoarder house?
I don't remember, but we're on dumpster number 9 right now.
Oh.
So I guess 9, I think the dumpsters are about 600. So something like that, the dumpster part. And then they actually got it cleared out pretty quickly. I was impressed by that, but it probably took 4 or 5 days, full time, sun up to sundown of clean out.
And so when do you think that will be done? Did you say, you said it about a month? It should be
about a month.
And incredible. Okay. I want to go back to the first house because you're almost, once this punch list is done, you're almost ready to rent it out. So what happens next for you? Do you have a property manager? You're going to list it? You're doing it?
I'm going to list it for rent myself and give it a shot on that. I self-manage my own portfolio here in Houston. I have 7 rentals in Houston. And so this is, or actually more than that, sorry, 10 rentals in Houston. And I self-manage. And so I'm going to give it a shot to do the remote self-manage.
What do you think you might be able to get rent-wise for this property?
I think about $1,550 to $1,580.
I want to talk with you a little bit about, and we've got a lot of questions, so I'm going to try and get to those, but I want to talk with you about your mindset and about how the program has helped you prepare for just real estate today. Like it's just every month is different, isn't it? So how has the program and how has your mindset, which is your own, helped you get through all this?
I think the biggest mindset shift through the program was looking at it from the lens of sort of almost like you would with corporate America. Like I said, I've been investing for real estate for a while, and I never was big on DIY. Like, for example, I learned very quickly that if I had to pick up a hammer and do stuff, I wouldn't be doing this business very long. But I think the biggest mind shift is on the scaling side, looking at it as if you were in corporate America. Almost like, I don't do private equity, but my firm does. How would a private equity person type do it? And that's not the verbiage that's used, but the mindset, like, okay, if I look at it from that angle, how would it do it? And I think that has been the biggest mind shift for me.
Well, I'm thinking as you're talking, the amount of offers that you've put out there and the right? The work that you put in on the front end is incredible. And that may be from your corporate background, right? It's just kind of like a numbers game, and you work with the numbers and you put it out there. So Beth is asking, how does one go about compensating a contractor walking through homes and then making offers? What criteria did you give him in placing offers? Do you both discuss it first before he places one? So like, do you compensate?
Sure.
And what do you?
So yeah, again, this contractor was really hungry, and I started to feel bad when we're on property number, 8 that he's walked and he doesn't have a deal. And so I offered him about $50 to walk. It takes him about, I don't know, a half an hour to walk a property, maybe another half an hour to put the budget and drive. Memphis isn't bad. So, we're talking about an hour to an hour and a half worth of work. And then obviously if we get the contract, he gets the job. Right. At first he said no to the $50. And then after property number umpteenth, no deal, he was like, I'll take that $50 now.
Azine is asking, what were the asking prices for both houses? Did you have to pay more than the asking price?
So the first house, it was originally listed for like 110, 115. It was on the market for about 4 months. Wow. And I paid right under asking for it. By the time they lowered it, I think they lowered it to like 99 or 98, something like that. So it was pretty close to asking. The wholesale deal, I paid full ask.
Say that second one. I'm sorry. Was
the second one? I paid the full price.
Okay, full price.
What's kind of like, if you look back and think about yourself before being an investor versus now, how do you see yourself differently? For someone who is listening to you talk now, you're so matter of fact. You're like, okay, boom, boom, boom. This is how I did it. Oh, that didn't work. That's okay. Whatever. Contractor got hurt. I figured it out. It just seems like you've got it all down, but I'm sure that's not how it all started. So if you look at yourself before and after, before you started investing in real estate versus today, how have you changed? What's the biggest difference in Tasha version 2.0? I'm sure there are many versions.
Yeah, there are. I think the biggest couple things, everything has a solution. You might not know what the solution is right now, but everything has a solution and is fixable. There are very few problems related to real estate. They're not fixable. We might not like the solution, but there's a solution.
Love that. And can we go back a little bit to just the portfolio program modules themselves? How have they helped you tactically kind of go through certain things? Like I've got a question here from Mehul about finishes and other rehab items. Can you talk about finishes? Like, did you like even just those small details, did you use the program? Did some things in the program help you, or did you have other things in your past that you used? Just so we have an idea of how you went from, okay, you have this mindset, but like you tactically, what did you do to get to this place where you are?
I think the numbers game mentality part was like, for example, the sales funnel. I very vividly remember that being shared during a call, and that was a game changer for me. So like, how many offers are you making? How many offers are being, like, that was the biggest game changer for me. The finishes and things of that nature, it was a combination. There were some things I think I used from the program, but also just, my experience and things of that nature of doing other things and on research, but coming up with the list and kind of sticking with it, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. And then another tactical thing was, so for example, the $50 contractor, that I think came from knitting. Like all these things, particularly in one way or another, came from the program largely.
I know we have people in this group right this moment, maybe watching even on Facebook, of all different levels. Maybe they have just started. I know there are several people who just started the program, just started their first module, and are wondering, how do I get to the point where I have 2 BRRRRs in 1 year? Like, how do we do that? I'd love to get your thoughts on. I know it's been a while because you have so many properties under your belt, but what can you say to someone who's just like just starting out and just going through the modules and kind of learning a lot and kind of drinking from the fire hose and getting all this knowledge. But how would you help them sort of see this as just sort of the step in the process?
Start and one step at a time, and rely on your accountability group. My accountability group, I think one of them might even be in here, has been key. It's not all peaches and rainbows by any means. There are times where I'm like, you know, and I use the accountability group to kind of vent and talk through those. Also, I think, you know, I remember vividly in 2019 in Houston, I was trying to find better deals in Houston. It was getting outbid. People were doing cash offers, big rehabs. And I was like, I'm totally intimidated. I don't know how to do any of this. Like, I can't do cash deals. I can't do big rehabs. I know nothing about X, Y, and Z. How are people doing this? And that's actually why I started looking at the program, because I was like, I'm missing something. Like, people have knowledge, and like, there are too many people that have figured this out, that it's not a secret. Like, I'm missing something. And so that's actually why I joined the program, because I was like, okay, I think that's the part that I'm missing. Like, you know, people aren't, you know, there aren't that many rich people walking around. Well, you know, like, there's something that I'm not, you know, gathering. And so I remember in 2019 being like, how the heck are people doing this? What? And then I remember taking the program and being like, oh, that's what people mean when they say, okay, okay, all right. I understand the game now.
It's a game, right? And we just need access to the
I love it.
Yeah.
And Pollock, I love this. I love these Sensei Sessions. Tasha, I love these Sensei Sessions because I think it helps people to understand. And I mean, I talk about it, not just in real estate, but with anything. It's like, real people are doing this real stuff. Like, you really put in X amount of offers in 1 week. Like, you really called all of these agents and was like, I need your help. I don't need your help.
Baby.
You know, like, you did all that. Yeah.
It's a baby. I had a full-time job and like all of that. You did it. Oh my God. I'm so proud of you, Tasha. I mean,
Thank you.
oh my God. This is amazing. Can I
go, please?
Daryl, is it okay if I ask everyone to put their takeaways in the chat while we're talking more? Guys, I'd love to know I mean, there was so much gold shared here, but what are some of your takeaways as you think of them? Type them, because I would love to know.
I'm going to ask you, Tasha, just a couple more questions. And like, what's next for you? What happens now? Like, things don't get less busy, but what's next on your radar?
Sure. So I definitely am focusing on, you know, getting the properties rented out. And after that, the rehab part. I go back and forth about, am I continuing the acquisitions now, or I'm going to pause a couple of months? Depending on what day you ask me. When I see something hit my inbox, it's hard for me not to analyze and see if I'm going to make an offer or not. But I will continue to make offers and acquire this year. I might pause for a couple of months and then pick back up in November. But keep going.
I have one last question, and it was something that you mentioned earlier about accountability groups. We could talk with you for days. I know this, but I feel like, you know, people are so busy. Like, we're so busy, and I know you're busy, and yet you took the time to find a group. How did you find the group? You must, I think, take time to connect with them. So how do you fit that in? Well, I know how you fit it in. You don't watch Netflix. I got to work on that. But can you talk about like how important that has been to your development as an investor?
Definitely. You know, I think that your community is a reflection of you and your growth, right? So it definitely is a big part. How I fit it in, I mean, it's text messages. Honestly, if I'm walking to or from a meeting, I tend to look at my phone and respond right then and there. It's not something that, you know, I carve out any dedicated time. It's, you know, and sometimes I'll have to say, I need to think about that and get back with you, because that, you know, requires something that more than I can take, you know, text back in 90 seconds. But it's a lot of it is just, I ask myself repeatedly, am I taking action?
you.